Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a totally mind-bending collision between modern multiverse physics and traditional philosophy. For centuries, philosophers have tried to clearly define the boundaries of what is actually possible. But in recent decades, theoretical physics has thrown a massive wrench into those classical frameworks. It's proposing realities so vast and bizarre that our old philosophical tools simply break down. So let's kick things off with a paradox that completely shatters our everyday understanding of reality. Think about this. If our absolute best cosmological theories suggest that an infinite number of universes exist out there, some with identical laws to ours and some with physics we literally can't even imagine, then how do we even define what's possible anymore? Does impossible just mean it's happening a few billion light years away in some other bubble of space and time? Here's our roadmap for solving this cosmic mystery today. We're going to cover mapping the multiverse, what makes a world, when physics breaks philosophy, a tale of two multiverses, the new modal hierarchy, and finally, rethinking reality itself. Let's get right into it. Section 1. Mapping the multiverse. We really need to grasp the sheer scale of physical variation we're dealing with here. If you've read physicist Brian Greene's book, The Hidden Reality, you know he outlines 9 distinct types of multiverses. These range all the way from the quilted multiverse, where conditions in an infinite universe eventually just repeat themselves, to the simulated multiverse, and finally up to the all-encompassing ultimate multiverse, where literally every possible mathematical equation comes to life as a real physical universe. So Greene is showing us that physics isn't just handing us one alternate reality, it's serving up a whole menu of them. Then we have physicist Max Tegmark, who takes a really interesting approach in our mathematical universe by putting these realities into 4 distinct categories. Level 1 is basically just regions of space way beyond our cosmic horizon. Level 2 involves these post-inflation bubbles that could have entirely different physical laws than ours. Level 3 is the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, realities splitting based on different outcomes. And level 4? That's the idea that the universe isn't just described by math, but actually is a living mathematical structure. Okay, moving right along to Section 2. What makes a world? Let's look at those traditional philosophical frameworks. First up, meet David Lewis. He championed a concept called modal realism. Lewis argued a pretty straightforward idea. Everything connected by continuous space and time belongs to a single world. So, in his view, worlds are completely causally isolated. If you can physically travel to it, or if it shares a space-time origin with us, it's all part of our one single world. Next is David Armstrong, and his system is called combinatorialism. For Armstrong, all possibility is just a massive rearrangement of the particles and properties that actually exist right here in our world. Think of it like a giant set of Lego blocks. He firmly rejected the idea of alien universals. Basically, if a property or a particle doesn't exist in our actual world, you can't use it to build a possible world in his system. And wrapping up the philosophers, we have Mark Launch. He defines reality by looking at what stays stable under counterfactuals, asking what would happen if the laws were different. He proposed a 3-level hierarchy. He separated everyday, specific facts from the actual laws of nature, and finally up to unbreakable meta laws, like symmetry principles, that govern absolutely everything. Which brings us to Section 3, when physics breaks philosophy. This is where the big concept clash happens. You see, this whole clash is perfectly captured in a fascinating thesis by David Plotnin out of the University of Miami. Plotnin's research really digs into exactly how things like eternal inflation and quantum mechanics have stretched our physical reality way beyond the limits of classical metaphysics. Let's look at exactly how each of our philosophers' systems breaks down under the pressure. Let's start with David Lewis. His whole spatiotemporal rule totally fails under the weight of eternal inflation. Why? Well, because eternal inflation churns out countless bubble universes that actually emerge from the exact same eternally inflating space-time substrate. Because they share that common origin, Lewis's rules force us to awkwardly classify drastically different universes. We're talking universes maybe without atoms or light as just parts of our single localized world. It completely flattens out modal reality. And this brilliantly exposes David Armstrong's problem. His combinatorial system literally runs out of parts. Remember, he builds possibility using only the ingredients already found in our universe. But string theory and the landscape of vacua suggest that alien universes out there might have 7 dimensions or entirely different gauge groups and particle spectra. He has 0 pieces in his Lego box to build those realities. Section 4. A tale of 2 multiverses. We need to look at outcomes versus laws. We really have to look at the massive difference between the 2 main ways physics generates parallel worlds. On one hand, we have quantum many-worlds, which varies the outcomes of events. Think of it like a chemical reaction. The same fundamental laws apply across the board, but reality branches out based on different measurements. On the flip side, we have eternal inflation, which changes the fundamental laws entirely across different cosmic bubbles. That is way more like a nuclear reaction transforming the absolute core nature of reality itself. As Plotkin points out, conflating these 2 completely different mechanisms, decoherence in quantum mechanics versus vacuum tunneling and eternal inflation, is a huge mistake. You just can't treat a world where you decided to have tea instead of coffee the same as a world where electromagnetism literally doesn't exist. We need a bigger, much more expansive system to handle this. All right, Section 5, the new modal hierarchy. It's time to reconcile physics and philosophy once and for all. Plotkin introduces this incredible 4-level modal hierarchy. It's a step-by-step ladder of expanding physical and logical scales that finally fixes the gaps left behind by Lewis, Armstrong, and Lang. It moves from local nomological up to global nomological, higher to metaphysical, and finally to logical possibility. Let's break down the 2 most important levels for our universe. At level 1, we have local nomological possibility. Now, this level perfectly houses Everett's quantum many-worlds. Down here, the laws of physics are totally fixed. The fundamental constants are exactly the same as ours, but the outcomes branch out. It's a vast, infinite tree of possibilities, sure, but they all play by the exact same rulebook. But level 2? That's where we step outside our bubble and get global nomological possibility. This level allows eternal inflation to dynamically generate entirely new laws, new dimensions, and new vacuum states that are physically realizable. These aren't just mathematical fantasies on a chalkboard. They're dynamically accessible configurations generated by actual physical processes over time. This is the absolutely crucial level that older philosophical models were completely blind to. Finally, Section 6, rethinking reality itself. Let's talk about what this actually means for us. So, what's the big takeaway? By differentiating what's just a mathematically consistent formula from what is dynamically accessible in reality, this framework does some massive explanatory work. For instance, it totally undercuts the fine-tuning argument. It explains why our universe appears so perfectly fine-tuned for life. Because think about it, if a level 2 multiverse exists, constantly generating bubbles with every possible parameter, it's absolutely unsurprising that we find ourselves in one of the rare bubbles where the laws actually allow us to exist and observe it. I really love this quote from Cormac McCarthy because it beautifully summarizes our journey today. Physics doesn't just discover new facts to plug into our old equations. No. As we've seen with quantum mechanics and eternal inflation, science discovers entirely new natures to have laws about. It stretches the very definition of possibility itself. So I'm going to leave you with a real mindbender today. If our entire universe, with all of its stars, all its galaxies, and all its seemingly unbreakable rules, is really just one dynamically generated combination of physical laws sitting at level 2 of this massive hierarchy, what impossible reality is playing out right next door, just outside our cosmic horizon? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep wondering and keep looking up.